All right. Well, good evening, Fuse Camp. Who has had an awesome first night on Fuse Camp, or first day? I don't know, that sounded like 20 of you. Come on, we can do better. Who has had an awesome first day of Fuse Camp? There we go, that's what we like to hear. All right, well, tonight we get to kick off the message series for the camp, and it's a series we're calling Rule and Reign. And look, here at Fuse Camp, we're not afraid of asking you guys big questions, right? Because we know it's actually the big questions of life that you guys are dealing with each and every day. So I want to kick off this whole series by chucking a massive question straight at you guys. So do you reckon you can handle that? You sure? I can do like Sunday school teaching if you want instead. You can handle it? All right, here we go. Do you ever feel like there should be more to this life? Like when you look at the story of your life, when you look at where you spend your time and your energy and your attention, are you ever left asking the question, is this it? I mean, you wake up in the morning, right? Your alarm goes off, and before you know it, you're dragged to school. And can we just agree, school's a bit of a drag, right? You're learning a whole bunch of stuff that you don't really care about. You're studying for exams that you really don't want to do, and it's just like, what is the point? And you know, when are you ever going to need to know how to deconstruct Romeo and Juliet? I'll stand back. When are you ever going to need to know how to deconstruct Romeo and Juliet or find the hypotenuse of a triangle? And it just seems like a whole bunch of stuff for no reason. And even if you're really good at school, right, like you enjoy the whole learning thing, you know that's not the point of your life, right? That you're never going to get like the perfect marks on an exam or get a perfect GPA and say, yep, my life is complete. I've done everything I needed to. That is my purpose. Okay, so you finish school, right? And you get to come home, and it's like every afternoon is just filled with doing stuff. Maybe for you that's swimming, or it's an instrument, or it's a sport of some kind. It's just every day you have something to do. And you like the stuff, right? Most of the time it's fun. You enjoy doing it. But again, no matter how good you get at it, no matter how much you master your sport or your instrument, that's not really going to do it for you either, right? It's not like you're going to master your chords on piano, or you're going to be able to dribble so well that you're like, yep, I've done it, I have peaked, this is my life done. So that's not it either. And then you get home. And inevitably you're tired, you're worn out, it's been a long day, and what do you have to do? Homework. As if somehow your teachers thought that you didn't do enough work during school and now you've got to bring it home with you. And if you're anything like me, you probably thought, well, this is okay, because if I do my homework, then I'll get good grades, and if I get good grades, then, I'll get a good GPA, and then I can get into the uni for the subject I want, and then I can get the job that I want, and then I can make lots of money, and then I'll be happy, right? Sorry to burst your bubbles there. I've walked a little way down that path, and I can tell you, money's not going to be the answer either. You're never going to have enough stuff or enough money in your life that you're like, yep, I am done. And it's like, you put your head down on the pillow at night, and you're just left asking the question, is this it? Is this all I am really living my life for? I wake up, I eat some stuff, I do some stuff, I come home, I eat some more stuff, go to sleep, and then just repeat the whole day over and over again. And it's like the highlight of your whole week is Saturday, when you get to spend the day playing video games or hanging out with your friends or watching the latest episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi. See, awesome show. What I want to do tonight is show you guys that the reason you actually feel like there should be more to this life is because there is. The reason you feel like there's something missing in your heart that you don't seem to be able to fill or satisfy is because there is something deeply missing from this world. And so what I want to do is I want to jump into the Bible tonight to show you what that thing is. And I'm actually going to go all the way to the very start of the Bible, to the moment of creation when everything was brought into being, to show you what this world is supposed to look like and what role we're supposed to play in this world. Does that sound good? Are we all still awake? Is the more important question. All right, here we go. Very first line in the entire Bible, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. That we start the story of creation with God stepping up to make everything. And in the midst of darkness and the chaos and the disorder of uncreation, God speaks. He says, "Let there be light." And literally in Hebrew, that's just two words. It's be light. And there is light. And then God speaks, and as he speaks, he separates the skies from the seas, and he separates the waters from the dry grounds, and he speaks, and the earth just comes alive as plants and flowers bloom and trees burst from the face of the ground. That God speaks, and as he speaks, the night sky just comes alive with stars and galaxies. And he speaks, and fish start swimming in the ocean, and birds start filling the skies, and animals start walking the face of the ground. That God speaks. And as he speaks, all of creation is brought into being. And then God stops speaking. And in order to complete this amazing and beautiful world, this masterpiece he has just formed, he makes us. He makes humanity in his image and in his likeness. But see, unlike the rest of creation, which God speaks and it's there, right? Like he goes moon and there's a moon, and he goes fish and there's a fish. When it comes to humanity, God does things a little bit different. It's almost like God gets his hands dirty when it comes to making us. See, what we're told is God gathers the dust of the ground, the dirt, and he forms that into the shape of a man. And that's all it is, right? It's an empty shell. It's a pile of dirt until God comes and breathes the breath of life into him. But I don't want you guys to picture this happening from a distance, right? It's not like a Disney scene where you see like the animated wind coming down from the mountains, sort of mixing with the dirt. No, we're told that God came and he breathed into the nostrils of the man. Now look, I don't know when you guys last breathed into someone's nostrils. I'm not going to judge. But you've got to get close to do that, right? And see, what's happening here is God gets face to face. He gets nose to nose. He gets eyeball to eyeball with the shell of a man, and he breathes the breath of life into him, and he becomes a human being. And what that means is the very first person, Adam, he opens his eyes, and he is face to face with God. That the first thing he sees when he opens his eyes is the God who created him before him. And in that instant, and in that moment, he is in perfect community, perfect relationship with that God. That is what you guys were made for. That each and every one of you sitting here today, if you have breath in your lungs, you were made to be in that sort of relationship with God. You were made to be nose to nose, eye to eye, face to face with the God who made you. And deep down in our hearts, we know that something is missing. We know that something in our lives is lacking when we don't have that sort of intimacy and relationship with God, because at the end of the day, we were actually made to walk with God. And look, whether you take the story literally, right? Like it's a literal 7 days and God made everything in those 7 days, or you take it as a symbolic representation of billions of years, it doesn't really matter. Because the truth of the story remains unchanged. The truth of the story is God made everything, and he made you intentionally. That if you're here today, you're not an accident. You're not here by random chance or some random roll of the cosmic dice. No, God made you on purpose, and he made you for a reason, and he made you to be in relationship with him. And as beautiful and as awesome as that sounds, it gets a whole lot better. See, God wasn't content to just make us and let us be in the world, right? It's not like he formed Adam and Eve and it's just like, okay, go do whatever you want, sit around playing Xbox all day, I don't really care. No, God actually comes and he gives us a role to play. He gives us a purpose in this beautiful world he has created. We're told in verse 28 that God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion or rule over the fish of the sea. Rule over the birds of the air and rule over every living thing that moves on the earth." That God makes this whole amazing and beautiful creation, and then he gives it to us. He comes and he puts this beautiful crown on our heads and says, all of this, all that I have made, all that exists, all of it is yours. Simba, everything the light touches belongs to you. See, the truth is, you were not made to just float through this life. Life isn't supposed to be this thing that just happens to you. No, each and every one of you were made to be kings and queens. You were made to rule and to reign over this beautiful world that God has given us. That in all of creation, there is only one thing that has the ability to reflect and image God to the rest of creation, and it's us. That only we can rule and reign with God. And look, I know there's a lot there, right? And it's kind of like a mind-blowing idea to think that we were made to rule and reign with God and for God and on behalf of God. But all it really means at the end of the day is we get to join God in what he's already doing. That in the same way that God filled the earth with living creatures, right? He comes to us and he says, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth with life. Create stuff. Take the raw things of this world and use it to make things that have never been seen before. That we rule and reign by creating families and communities and friendships, by creating new technologies or sciences or medicines, that anytime we are creative and we make things like art or music or we tell jokes or tell really bad stories, we are joining God in the act of creation. Secondly, we rule and reign by joining God in cultivation. That it's not like God made everything and sort of left it to run its course. No, he comes to us and he says, subdue and cultivate. That we're to take this amazing world that God has made and make it even better. That in the same way that God took chaos and disorder and imposed order and structure on it, we're to do the same things. We're to bring structure and order and form. We are to take what God has made and join him in cultivation. That the work of creation is this ongoing project that you and I get to be a part of. And then finally, we join God in covenant. And look, covenant's this big Bible word, right? But all it really means is a relationship with a promise. It's a relationship with a promise to work together towards some common goal. That we rule and reign with each other. It's not a job we do by ourselves. It's something we're supposed to do as a community and together in covenant relationship with other people. And we're supposed to rule and reign in covenant relationship with God. That we're to join in what he is already doing and work with him to look after this beautiful world he has given us. That God comes and he says, rule and reign. Join me in what I am doing. Join me in creation. Join me in cultivation. Join me in covenant. Wear this beautiful crown and be my representatives in this world. And we do. And everything is amazing and beautiful and awesome for like one page in the Bible. Like legit, that's as far as we get in the biblical story before everything gets stuffed up. See, what happens is this enemy comes along. And essentially he comes in opposition to this beautiful world that God has made. And he gives us a choice. He says, look, you can rule and reign with God. You can rule and reign for God, on behalf of God, all that lovely stuff. Or you can do a different thing. Instead of ruling and reigning the way God says to, you can rule and reign as you see fit. Instead of taking God's definition of what's right and what's wrong, you can make up your own definitions of right and wrong. Instead of representing God to the rest of creation, your eyes can be opened and you can be like God. And that's the choice they make. And in the most heartbreaking moment in all of human history, Adam and Eve take the beautiful crown that God had given them, a crown of authority, a crown of stewardship, a crown to rule and reign with God forever. And we throw it to the ground. And in its place, we put a broken crown of our own glory. That we choose to rule and reign ourselves instead of ruling and reigning with God. That we choose to be our own gods. And at the end of the day, we make really, really rubbish gods. And look, because God had given us authority, because he had given us rule and reign over this beautiful world, when we rebel against God, when humanity falls away from God, all of creation falls with us. And instead of having this beautiful relationship with each other, of ruling and reigning together, Adam and Eve look at each other. And for the first time, they feel shame. That instead of working together on this beautiful project that God had given us, we start arguing and bickering and fighting, and now you have things like wars and just humanity trying to rule over each other instead of ruling together. That instead of joining God in creation and cultivation of this beautiful world, it's almost like the world starts fighting back. That we're told, cursed is the ground because of you. And you're going to have to work by the sweat of your brow and the pain of your hands. And the ground produces thorns and thistles, and stuff that should have been really easy just becomes hard. And now we have things like diseases and global pandemics and just famines, and just the world is just stuffed up. And most heartbreakingly of all, that beautiful relationship with God. The ability to be face to face, nose to nose, eyeball to eyeball with the God who made us is lost. And the very first thing Adam and Eve do is they cover themselves up and they run and they hide from God. And so for the first time, humanity feels like we do now. Humanity starts asking the question, is this it? Is this all I am living my life for? And the reason you guys feel that way today is because deep down you remember Eden. You remember what the world is supposed to look like. And the brokenness, the hollowness, the emptiness of this world we live in, it just doesn't quite measure up. That we know we're supposed to be wearing a beautiful crown that God had given us, and instead we are wearing a broken crown, and it just doesn't feel the same. And look, as we finish this off and the band comes up, that's the world we live in, right? And I could end the message there, and it would be a really, really accurate description of why it feels like there's something missing in our heart, of why it feels like the world is just not how it's supposed to be. But look, that's not where God ends things. See, what happens is God comes along and he explains to Adam and Eve the consequences of their rebellion. He explains to them how the world is not going to be the same because of the choice they've made. And in the midst of explaining all of that, he stops and he turns and he gives Adam and Eve a promise. He says, Eve, I will put hostility between your offspring and this enemy who has deceived you. And one day there's going to come one of your offspring, so a single human Jewish male. And look, the enemy's going to bruise his heel. The enemy's going to hurt this man. It's going to look like the enemy has won. But at the end of the day, this promised son, this promised offspring, he will crush the head of the enemy. That from the moment brokenness and emptiness entered the world, God promised that he was going to make it right. That he was going to send someone who was going to restore our hearts, that he was going to send someone who would put back on our heads the crown we were supposed to wear, and one day he was going to restore the world as well. And look, if you guys are sitting here tonight, I need you to know God has already done that. That promised son who had his heel bruised and crushed the head of the snake was and is Jesus. And through his life, his death, and his resurrection on the third day, he crushed the head of the snake. And look, tonight, if you are just so aware of the fact that there is something missing in your heart, if you were just so aware of the fact that this world is broken and stuffed up and it just doesn't live up to what you thought it should be, and I'm telling you the answer is Jesus. That you have a God-sized hole in your heart that only God can fill. And look, if I'm being honest, you don't even have to know how that really works. That you don't actually have to understand how the cross brings your salvation in order to accept it. That someone who is drowning doesn't need to know how CPR works in order to be saved. All you really have to know is that 2,000 years ago, Jesus came and he lived a perfect life. The life we wish we could live, the life we were supposed to live, but the life we are unable to live. And despite that, one night they arrested him. One night they beat him and they mocked him and they spat in his face and then they hung him on a cross to die. That he died a death that only our brokenness, only our rebellion from God could have ever merited. And on the third day, he walked out of an empty tomb. And tonight, if you would just trust him, if you would just believe in him, if you would just give your life to him, he can come and he can fix that thing inside of you. He can come and he can take off the broken crown of your own glory that you have been wearing, and he can restore the crown you were supposed to be. That he can come and he can give you back purpose and meaning and just fullness to the life you were supposed to live. All you have to do is accept. That's all it takes. And so look, I want to give everyone an opportunity to do that tonight. And so if I just ask if everyone close your eyes and bow your head, and just do it anyway, even if you don't care about what I'm saying, so it doesn't distract others. And look, tonight, if that's you, if you feel like there should be more to your life, and you want to admit that, you want to admit that you need Jesus, and you believe that what he did on the cross counted for you, and you want to call him your Lord and your Savior today, would you just put your hand up? We're not going to single you up. I'm not going to make you come to the front or anything. We just want to pray over you. Your leaders want to pray with you. So if that is you tonight, would you just raise your hand? So I'm going to pray, and then we're going to finish off with some more worship. And if that is you tonight and you want to give your life to Jesus, just pray this prayer with me. Jesus, I need you. There's this hole in my heart. There's this broken crown on my head, and I need you. And I believe that what you did on the cross, that made a way for me to come back into relationship with God. And I call you my Lord and my Savior. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.